All right, folks, I appreciate you joining us today. I appreciate your time. I think you're going to learn a lot today. But before we get started on the interview, just give me a second to describe to you what the mission is for my YouTube channel. The idea of my YouTube channel, to go along with the book and the presentations and the workshops, is to really demonstrate the power of how spiritual transformation can help you with PTSD, trauma, loss, and grief. There's a lot of people who are suffering out there, and with spiritual transformation, that has helped millions of people around the world. I know that term tends to bother people sometimes. They don't really understand it. We're just looking at a way to understand yourself and you as a soul so that you understand the spirit, mind, body concept. Most of the people who suffer from PTSD, trauma, loss, and grief focus on the mind and the body. They focus on medical stuff. They focus on ways to heal. They focus on counseling and therapy, but they really don't address the faith-based part of it, which is really your soul level healing. And this interview today, particularly, is with an individual who has struggled with things in his life, has gone through spiritual transformation, and he is actually today a teacher and a professional healer. And one of the things you're going to learn today is to look at the spirit, mind, body concept. So with us today, we have Reverend James Lasher of the Indianapolis Progressive Spiritualist Church. I'm going to let him introduce himself a little bit and talk about his background in a minute. But I want to let you know that I met Jim when I started to attend the Progressive Spiritualist Church of Indianapolis last summer, and he was actually teaching classes on intuition. And I went to his class, and we got to know each other, and I realized after getting to know him that he does a whole lot more than just teach the classes. He also provides healing to people through different modalities. And he also helps a lot of other people with the spirit, mind, body concept, even to lead meditation classes for those there that are shut in Indianapolis. So I'm going to let him go into more detail on all this in a minute. But he is an ordained minister with the Spiritualist Church there in Indianapolis, and he has provided healing to a lot of people. And so it's okay I call you Jim today because we're good friends, and that's how I always call you.
That's what I expect everybody to call me.
Right. Well, anyway, welcome and thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate you coming onto the interview today.
Great. I'm ready.
All right. So if you don't mind, just give everyone a little bit of background about yourself, about childhood and adolescent, adulthood, and kind of take people through your life a minute so they can hear the different parts of your life and kind of what parts of your life they can identify with. So just give us a little bit of information about your background.
I'm especially wanting to concentrate on a few particular events in life that really pertain to this need for transformation. I was sitting back and thinking, okay, now how am I going to introduce myself? This is like the old style personals. WSGM, white single gay male. No, I'm a born again New Age Christian Buddhist spiritualist. And Christians are always glad to hear that I got the word Christian in there, but they're a little bit baffled by all the rest of that. Hopefully that kind of says that I'm very open-minded. I'm going on 69 years of age. I was a wanted child. My parents wanted me for 7 years before I finally came into the world. It's important to know that I was wanted. Is when I was 13 months old, the family car accident meant that I was separated from my parents at that early age. And that's a very important age for feeling safety. It's abandonment issues. And that would come up in my life on many occasions. Next major event I'll go to is 3rd and 4th grade. I had the same teacher every day. And for some reason, I was struggling then. And I spoke to many a counselor to find out what happened then, that I went from being the A student in 1st and 2nd grade to many a time finding I would go into class and say, well, I've got my homework here. And then when she would ask me a question, I didn't have the answer. And I still have not found a reason on that. But what it amounted to is every day, almost every day for 2 years, she would stand behind me in front of the entire class and say, is this too difficult for you, Jim? We can always send you to that other class. And that other class at that time was what was referred to as mentally retarded. So for 2 years, I heard that almost every day. It wasn't until, 9 years later, 10 years later, when I was a freshman in college, and I got my first grades. I had an A in economics and A in physical science, and it occurred to me, maybe I'm not mentally retarded, because I don't think they just pass people on in college. So for those 10 years, I was being told 2 of those years that I was mentally retarded by that particular teacher. But then for the other 8 years, I was telling myself that. The desire then to go in and just disappear, because I knew that if I spoke, others would know how stupid I was. So if someone said, "You're stupid, you're dumb," I would immediately shut down. I wanted to disappear because I did not want people to see that I was dumb. I was stupid. Okay. So that's another major thing that had to have transformation in my life. Those 2 A's in college were just the beginning of realizing that I might be intelligent.
Right.
I have a Master's of Divinity degree from St. Mindred College and School of Theology. So that doesn't quite fit the definition of being stupid.
Mm.
So I had to go through transformation on that. I think a third one, and the last one I really want to mention in particular, was that I was raised Catholic and went to a prep high school. For our high school was prep seminary. After that, I decided I didn't want to go into priesthood. So I went to Indiana State University in Terre Haute for 3 years. There, I got involved with a group called SCAMPS, SCAMPS. It stands for Serving Christ Alone Means Personal Satisfaction. It was an evangelical Christian group. It was quite different from being a Catholic. And man, they had me roped in there. All the smiles and the hugs and the welcoming made me feel really good to be there, not alone. I went so far as to go ahead and be baptized by immersion then, not denying my Catholic baby baptism, but just saying I need a new start.
Right.
The next step was they told me now I had to go convert all my pagan Catholic friends. I didn't regard my Catholic friends as being pagans. All at once, the smiles, the hugs, the welcoming, that all went away. So anyway, I ended up going then back into St. Mindred for heading on to priesthood. I was ordained in 1979, had 4 decent years, and then 2 years that to me were very much like my 3rd and 4th grade experience. They were very negative. I don't wish to go into names. That's not important, and I wouldn't want to do anything negative to them. After all, this is quite a number of years ago. They've had their chance to grow as well. But when I left the priesthood then in 1985, that's only 6 years in, I wasn't fit to be hired by anybody. I was so low on myself and on life. Felt like a total failure. I mean, after all, not only did I let myself down, I let my parents down leaving the priesthood, I left the church down, but ultimately the thing was, I let God down. Now, if you want to talk about shame and guilt, I don't think there's anything any deeper than saying, I let God down.
It's a lot of shame and guilt.
A lot of shame and guilt. So for the next 23 years, I lived a life of survival. I found different jobs to do. Odds and ends jobs just to pay the rent, have the food. I walked into Progressive Spiritualist Church. So those are the 3 big influencing issues coming up from all of that. But I walked in Progressive Spiritualist Church. They found out that I'd been a priest 23 years earlier and asked if I'd like to do a sermon. I had not spoken to a group in 23 years.
Wow.
Right next to the little sanctuary area was a door that went right into a bathroom. And I was so nervous, I just knew I was going to have to go in that bathroom and throw up. I was sweating cold. I got up to do the sermon, and after the first two sentences, the congregation was laughing. And I felt like all those years of shame just dropped right off me, like slime, just rolling right off, right into Mother Earth. I refer to it as Mother Earth now. And it felt wonderful. I did leave something out that's important to go in here. The first person that I came out to as being gay was in an office of a priest in the context of confession. And I was crying my eyes out, a senior in high school, so shamed, because that's the way it was then.
Right.
If you were gay, the American Psychological Association had not yet removed gay from being on the mental illness list. So I was considered mentally ill for being gay. Then you have the church with that schizophrenic kind of teaching of God loves you, but he doesn't love gays.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of that kind of thing, and who can I tell? That priest I confessed to could not back his desk up or his chair back far enough from me. He actually was backed up against the wall. He had moved back about 6 feet away from me.
Yeah.
So the whole thing about the abandonment issues, the gay, and gay was taught, you're not lovable. You are not capable of loving anyone, and you're not capable of being loved. So abandonment issues, retarded, being mentally ill, unlovable, and failing God. Those, I would say, would sum up the issues that needed transformation in my life.
Well, that's a lot to transform. And well, first off, thanks for sharing all that, because I know that sometimes that's not easy for people to go back and talk about it. I know we've talked a lot about transformation, so I knew you were comfortable going through that. But for those out there watching this, that this is examples of things that you have in your life that you need to get through and transform. And a lot of it, we talk about personal development. A lot of people talk about personal development, but we're talking about transformational development on a different level, on a soul level. And for you to talk about that, it was a lot. And that helps the people watching this know that whatever issues they have, that they can get through this. And I know that you've gone through a lot, and you went through a lot, and you were carrying a lot of stuff when you started with that church. Can you talk a little bit about now the transformational process that you went through? It's not the same for everybody. You had a lot of background and a lot of study, but can you talk about the things that you did and went through to go from all those things you were carrying to where you felt that they'd been sort of behind you, and you found yourself more on a soul level of truly who you are and why you're here?
Yeah. Let's start with the mental retardation. Let's start with that.
Okay.
And I'm calling it that because that's what it was called then.
Right.
I know that's an offensive term today. It's not politically correct.
Right.
But I think that has the emotional, it describes emotionally what was going on. I was sitting in my living room, this is only about 15 years ago. And PBS had a wonderful program on, it was on learning disabilities. Within 5 minutes of watching that show, I was on the living room floor bawling my eyes out, because there was an internal realization it wasn't about being mentally retarded. It was about learning in a different way. One of the things that helps you in transformation is the arts, and it reminds me of a chorus line. And there's this one woman, Morales. She's from Puerto Rico, and she has to do these things for her teacher, teaching her to be an actress. And she just can't get what he's trying to do. And he really shames her. So she leaves, and finds a different teacher. And that to me is one of the big lessons. If a teacher is shaming you, if a teacher is putting you down, or in any relationship they're putting you down, you're with the wrong person. I needed to have a different teacher. And thankfully in my life, that transformation, it's a long process I went through, but I had a lot of teachers along the way. There was Father Hilary Ottensmeyer at St. Minard was ahead of everybody else there. He was big into transactional analysis. The I'm okay, you're okay. And I was living the life of I'm not okay, you're okay. So I would follow anyone around like a puppy dog. But finding out that, no, I'm okay. I'm lovable. He knew I was gay. He knew I struggled with learning. And that's all right. I'm okay. That was big, big impact. And especially since it was coming from a church, as I said, schizophrenically says God loves me, but he doesn't. Okay? It's very, very important to me. I wish he was still alive. He's such a wonderful, wonderful man. The other thing was friends. To finally be able to tell someone what I felt such shame about and have them say back, I love you. For me, guilt is something you can simply say, I'm sorry, and be forgiven. But shame is a matter of not that I made a mistake, but I am a mistake. And that was my belief system. God made a mistake in making me. I didn't commit suicide because I was told that was wrong, but I wished all those years that I was dead. So the big transformation is a lot of it came in part of it came from a spiritual instinct of believing that even though there's been all this what I'll call abuse, God does love me. God really does love me. I'll tell you a spiritual experience if that's okay.
Oh, please do. Go for it.
All right. I've had a few of these. This was back actually when I was a Catholic priest, so a long time ago. I was in my car and I was so frustrated and I yelled out at God, why am I gay? And I distinctly heard, I made you gay to be sincere, understanding, and courageous. And of course, I had to argue with that and say, what do you mean courageous? No, it's damn fearful to be living like this. Okay, I understand sincere. I understand understanding. And people told me another word for that was, getting more into compassion, acceptance. But that changed my life because I said, nobody can convince me that didn't happen. So anybody or any institution that wants to tell me I'm not lovable, they're wrong. Time for me to go find another group, find another teacher.
Yes, absolutely. So the joke we had in our family was, you've heard the phrase, if you lack patience, God gives you a spouse. If you still lack patience, God gives you children. And everybody kind of giggles and laughs about that. But we have some tough life lessons in our life. And is it fair to say that when you work through those things that you heard that God wanted you to learn, when you work through those and you transform and learn those lessons and apply them to your life, that you literally transform your whole life when you learn the tough lessons, but you overcome them, where a lot of people succumb to them. And it sounds to me like rather than succumbing to them, you overcame them. Can you walk us through the process a little bit about when you were overcoming those? What are the things that you did in terms of your activities and your relationships and some other things that you did to overcome some of that and then apply them to your life?
I have always felt like that I was called to be a healer, even as a child.
Right.
but I hated doctors. I hated hospitals. I hated nursing homes. I, I didn't want to have anything to do with all that kind of medicine stuff. I mean, those places stank, and I got a sensitive nose, you know that. And it would just drive me crazy to be around that stuff. And yet feeling like a healer and seeing the fake, I'll call them fake, the ones that I saw on TV, the fake laying on hands healers. So that just didn't seem right. And yet I still had a belief in Jesus' ability to heal and saying, you can do even better. So I pursued it in the way of massage, reflexology, Reiki, eventually getting to vibrational healing with music vibration. We'll talk more on that, I'm sure, later, Genesis. So I put myself into that. And in that process, it put me more in touch with communicating with people. So my social skills grew from doing that. Someone mentioned you got to live your life in gratitude. And okay, I'm on another point here. Gratitude. And so I started just every day in my prayer saying what I'm thankful for. And it made a difference just taking some time to focus on that. Gratitude was big lesson on there. One of the most significant things that I got was working in a chemical dependency unit at a hospital here in Indianapolis. Working with people who were doing the 12-step programs. Those 2 or 3 years working there were probably the most rewarding and life-changing years that I ever had. Because I saw their 12-step program and the spirituality in it that didn't matter what religion you were. And I saw them working through it. And I learned about my own codependency, so I started going to a 12-step group myself. And that's a big part of the spiritual transformation, is looking inward. What's going on honestly inside? You know, that first step, getting through the denial and admitting I got a problem.
Yep, absolutely.
And the rest of the program is phenomenal. Again, that's a place where you can share some of the things that you're not so proud of in your life, but you have support if it's a healthy group. If it's a healthy group. If it's an unhealthy group, then please go find another one if you're involved in that. But so to me, the transformation is not something that happens in an instant. It takes time. There'll be those key moments, like that one I mentioned in the car, you know, why did God make me gay? And I've had a couple of others of those that I love. You get those key moments when something is an aha moment. But it's the steady work. It's the steady support of other people around. Changing beliefs from the experience in talking to other people. You know, in the spiritualist church, learning that it's okay if I'm wrong. I don't have to be right. You know, being with that label of the retarded, and I didn't want people to know I was dumb. Well, that meant that if I had to say something, I had to be right. So I developed all this perfectionism. I have to be perfect, or they will know who I really am. People who are complimenting me say, oh, they wouldn't compliment me if they knew. So all the positive things that were there for me, I was neglecting. And now I'm saying, no, These people know me and they love me. They accept me. Take in those compliments. They're real. That's a shift in attitude that had to happen. Very important one.
So one of the things you talked to me about, we've talked about over the summer, a lot of people go through transformation, they go through change, they go through personal growth, and all the self-help and all the personal growth stuff out there is phenomenal. It's all good stuff. But one of the things that you and I talked about, that your transformation, the spiritual transformation, is on a soul level. When you truly get to know who you are as a soul, what is your purpose? Why are you here? What is the thing that brings you joy and happiness and fulfillment that you were meant to do? And so when you talk about being a healer, your eyes would just light up. I mean, you would just get excited about it. The other thing you love doing is, you love teaching. And one of the things that, when you went through this transformation and you realized who you truly were as a soul, not just a human being, that you got to know your soul as well as the human, you really started to move out and start to fulfill your life's purpose as a healer. So let's talk a little bit about, once you went through that transformational process and you were comfortable who you were as a human and a soul, you sort of did healing through different programs. You also became a teacher, and you became a reverend, an ordained minister with the church. So let's talk a little bit about, let's just talk about a few of them. The first one, let's talk about your work with the meditation classes and the visitations to people, and then we'll get into the intuition.
Yeah. Well, the meditation, of course, I do some for the classes that I teach, but then also going to a retirement village with delightful older people. I won't go into detail now, it'll take too much time, but you know some of those people, I've told you about them and all. And just getting explaining meditation in different ways. Because I know there's some people are going to say, this is the way you meditate. That's it. One way. And there are thousands of different types of meditations, and I make mine up. Yeah. So I go and find out what's the need of the group, like the retirement village. And one time they'll say, we got a lot of sick people right now. I'll mold the meditation around healing and having positive thoughts. I've taught them something about how our thoughts make things happen. And so let's put those positive thoughts out there for their own healing and for others' healing. John, it's now at a point that when I'm done with meditations, I have to tell them, whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. And I'll have to sit there in silence for another 5 to 7 minutes before anybody opens their eyes. Now, one of them might go to sleep, but the others, they're just really in that, I'll call it a soul space.
Yep, soul space.
They're in that connection. For my classes, I always teach that prayer has purpose. So before my classes, I'm invoking everything that has to do with our being able to relax, open up our intuitive self, so we can really get into the class and have our experiences. I say, somebody gets asked to say a prayer before their meal, and they pray for everything except blessing the food. Thank you for getting us all together, all the safe transportation. We love the weather. And they go on and on and on and on and still never bless the food. Prayer has purpose. And so when I do meditation, I'm saying, what is the purpose of this meditation? And then I invite them in with the breathing and imagery, and take them where we need to go.
Yeah, when you describe that to me, you do the meditation with setting intentions, having a purpose, and I think that has a tremendous amount about what you get out of meditation.
Absolutely.
You taught me that by doing it live with me and the group, and that was, you always set intentions and had a purpose to what we did, and it always made a bigger difference. And So then the other thing that you do, I know you do a lot of visitation, sort of pastoral care, but you do a lot of visitations with people. You have a tremendous amount of patience and love and concern and compassion for other people. I've always loved your compassion for other people. And one of the things that you do is you teach other people. And one of the things I wanted to get out of today's interview was to have you explain to me a little bit about the concept that everyone has intuition, everyone's born with it, and what its really primary purpose is, and not necessarily going in and becoming an intuitive expert and what people always think of when they think of intuition, but it's basic intuition we all have, and then a little bit about the classes that you teach and how you walk students through that. And then the last thing I'd like to share is a little bit about what the sort of the transformation you see in people as they start living their life with greater ease and synchronicity because they're now listening. I being one of them.
Oh, goodness. That's a lot. Let's see.
So let's start with the basics of intuition. What is it and why do we all have it?
Well, I'm going to go to Myers-Briggs.
Okay.
Okay. Got those letters. And I'm an INFP, if anybody understands what that is. And if you don't, that's okay. That second letter N is for intuition. The other set was the ESTJ, and that second one, S, is for sensate. So are you more intuitive or are you more of a sensate person? And for me, teaching the intuitive class is I have to bring those two together. Because sensate is about being aware of what's going on. In your meditations, you have mindfulness meditations. You've got just being able to, well, to bring those two together. I'll take a person and have them wander all over the building, all over the big room. Where are they most comfortable? Where are they least comfortable? And it just gets them that sense of feel, like somebody goes into a house and they know if it's a peaceful, loving house, or they walk in and boy, that air just tells them, boy, this is a place of conflict.
Right.
Getting people aware of those little things like that, that brings the sensate into with the intuition. It brings them together. So there's a method to my madness there, John, in pulling that together. Because some people are not as intuitive as others. So this is a way of bringing them more into that intuition. So I don't know if I answered that or not totally.
That is. So one of the things that I was sharing with folks is that everybody is born with intuition. And, you know, God didn't put you on this planet and then say, peace out. I don't want to ever talk to you. I don't want to ever communicate with you. Good luck. And so what the idea is that it's just a way for God or to the spiritual realm or whatever to actually have a communication with you, just like a parent sends their kid off to college and they want to be able to communicate with them. God wants us to be able to communicate, and intuition is born to everybody. Is that correct? And everybody has intuition.
Everybody has intuition.
And you can develop that intuition at whatever state you're at. So if you can't play, if you have no musical talent, you could learn to play the piano. You may not be as good as people who were born to do it, but you can learn to play it. And is it fair to say that if you're born with intuition, you can learn to develop it, even if this is not your normal, normal thing you're gifted at? And what does that intuition development do for a person?
It calms the mind.
Mm-hmm.
It takes us out of our usual beta brain waves into the alpha and even deeper. And in there, we can have an awareness that is it's deeper, it's more spiritual. It's that sense of a connection with nature, a connection with other people. It allows one to sit with themselves. Right now, with people being in a stay-at-home kind of thing with the illness going on, coronavirus, people are going nuts just sitting by themselves or sitting with family. this intuition allows us to get to that peaceful inner self. It's not about dealing with the, oh my God, there's some sort of beast out there chasing me in my caveman days. It's not that my boss is chasing me down for something, or the pressures of other ways in society. It's getting down to our truer self. This is who we are without PTSD, without anxiety, without guilt, without shame. It's a sense of the truer self. I equate that truer self as, some people say higher self, some will say the Buddha nature, some will say the Christ self or the Christ consciousness. To me, they're all the same. We reach that when we can have that intuition bring us into that relaxed state.
And when you do that in your classroom, like the classes that I attended, and you do that in your classroom, what are some of the outcomes that you've seen with some of your students when they showed up the first day and when the class is over? What are some of the changes in them that you can share with the group? I understand there's privacy issues, but you can just give a general sense.
I don't think she'd mind my sharing this at all. I don't know how old she is. I know she's older than I am. She came to class the first day, and I had her stand up, and I call it gift giving, in which I asked the person standing there with me to get in touch with his intuitive side, and I will refer to that as angels or guides or helpers or intuition, and say, this person, I don't want to say names again, he wants a gift. So your first thought, what is the gift that you want to give him? Your first thought. And she said, new shoes. He needs new black shoes. Now, I'm thrilled for somebody on the first day up there to get anything. And I start to move from that. And she says, Aunt, they need to be new black comfortable shoes. So she's added in. I get ready to move on. She says, because he's taking on a job, an additional part of his job, and he's going to have to do a lot of walking. So I said, I can't relate this in a spiritual way. So I asked him, can you relate to this? And he said, yes, my job is expanding. In the last 2 days, I've been on the internet looking for new black shoes because I'm going to have to do some more walking. And she just lit up. And I said, do you know what you just did? She said, no, what? I said, you just gave your first spiritual message. And she just lit up. And I said, now, did you feel like that came from you? He said, well, no, I would never have thought that. And I said, uh-huh. So you're in contact with something higher. And just elation that she was able to do that. And I get those kind of experiences with the new students all the time. And that's why I love it. I love the teaching.
So the other thing that we talked about, and that's a great story. I remember that. So when you had other students in the class, is it fair to assume that some of those folks, after that first set of classes that you teach, they walk out more comfortable about who they are, about the purpose they have in their life. They feel as though that they've healed some things in their life because they now have a greater understanding of themselves. And I've seen a change. I mean, I remember the people in the class when they walked out, they're different people than when they walked in. And they're more confident. They feel happy about their life. They have a greater sense of purpose because they now understand what it's like to listen and to follow guidance and understanding what their true nature is. And I see that in every student that you've ever taught.
Well, thank you. I want to add this little caveat to that. Remember earlier I talked about if the teacher isn't a match for you, find another teacher.
Yeah.
Well, I believe that as a teacher, my job is to try to find the different methods that I can reach the different ones. Just like me in that 3rd and 4th grade. If they had talked to me in a different way, I would have learned easier.
Yes.
So my students, I take that same lesson and apply. How is it that they're able to learn? How can they get this? And a big difference, I am always supporting them, never judging, never condemning, never telling them they're stupid or they can't do it. Saying, okay, this method didn't work for you. We'll do another method. That's important. And that's also for our spiritual development, that not be shamed. And if one part of a program, spiritual program, a person can't get it, it doesn't mean they failed. There's another spiritual method that they can relate to.
Yes, absolutely. And when I was in the class, you taught each individual student in a different way. You obviously worked with me differently than the others. And just so transparency, folks, I mean, with Jim, he was so good at what he did. I asked him if he would individually mentor me, and he took my intuition to a whole new level I didn't think was possible. And so, but it did help the students in that classroom, because you did individually work with each one of them in a different way, and you understood them. And that made a difference to them. I know that it did, because they would share that with me. I know that we also had, I wanted to touch a little bit. Well, first off, the teaching is also healing. When you help people find their inner self, when you help people have a connection on a soul level rather than just a human level, that's healing. You bring healing into their life by helping their themselves be able to listen to themselves and know the direction and the paths and relationships that would be beneficial to them for a higher good. But you also do sort of hands-on healing, and I know that part of the things that I talk about in my book is vibrational healing, the things that you can do that aren't traditional medicine, but today are actually being widely accepted. I mean, everyone's heard of chiropractor and massage therapy. A lot of people have even heard about energy or Reiki healing, and they all have a purpose, and they all have a technique. But the vibrational healing was something that I really had not been exposed to. Can you walk me through a little bit about the vibrational healing, and maybe just quickly mention about the Genesis thing, the Genesis machine you have, and how you actually do hands-on or even hands-off energy healing?
Yes. Legally, the things I'm going to talk about, I cannot call them healing devices. I can call them experimental devices.
Okay.
I can say that they're for deep relaxation.
Okay.
When people get rid of tension, I say anything is possible. Legally, I can say anecdotally, I've had people have healings.
Yeah.
I myself had a growth inside my nose, and after using this Genesis system for a number of times, it was suddenly gone. The growth was just gone. Have a woman who had pancreatic cancer, and she came in and she emailed back that she suddenly realized she's been all over this county for the last 8 hours getting things done that she couldn't do before, because she just realized she's not in pain. You know, I can only say that anecdotally. Legally, those things happened. Okay, she was nauseated after her chemo. I said, well, let's get her in here anyway. If she throws up, we got a bucket for her. She wasn't nauseated afterwards. It's had many different, well, the Genesis, though, looks a lot like monkey bars, the old playground monkey bars. Music plays through there. I can play almost any kind of music. It's based on the vibrations from the music. There are sensors built into it that tell a computer which vibrations the body associates with tension, and it eliminates those vibrations. It increases the vibrations associated with relaxation. So it's checking this, I'm told, 10,000 times a second to adjust, to try to find the appropriate vibrations to make a person go into the deepest relaxation.
Oh.
So So it's a beautiful experience, and you don't even have to like the music, but I prefer to choose music you like, because it's not based on whether you enjoy the music. It's based on the vibration. The Totals app, I think you're going to talk to someone else about now. It's got different frequencies, and you hold two metal wands for those frequencies then to flow through your body. So vibrational medicine, there's sound medicine that's out there. There are people who are great experts on that, and it's easy to find them on the internet. The different tones have different effects for different organs of the body. Different vibrations have effects on different parts of the body. This is all very experimental. I think that there are some out there that have done enough research that they can actually say that they have proven some of these things. But I love it when people come here, and one group that I'd love to come here and just use the Genesis is, I don't think I'm equipped to deal with heavy duty PTSD, but a more minor PTSD. I'd love for them to come in and use this. It just does such a world of good.
It helped me with mine. I mean, I had, I think I did 4 different sessions with you, and but it was relaxing. It released tension. I felt completely relaxed and calm for days afterward. Things that normally would trigger didn't trigger. It was actually pretty phenomenal, the benefit. But the other things that you did was some of the personal energy work. I mean, your body is energy. Your body is energy.
Yeah.
You can measure that. You can see it in scientific experiments. I mean, your body is just flowing energy. Yeah. And so you do some energy work while the Genesis machine is going.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that energy work that you do.
Okay. And some of it is physical techniques. Here in Indianapolis, Indiana, I am not certified as a massage therapist, so I cannot say that I do massage, cannot call myself that. Person's fully clothed except for shoes and whatever metal they can take off. But like I can do some, if I don't call it massage, I could say I'm calling some rubbing of the feet. Well, I can say I'm a reflexologist, so that's the feet. I can do massage on the hands. There's some acupressure I do. But now as far as energy goes, then I'm a double Reiki master. And I can do exercises in our class too, in which people experience the energy in their hands. The other day I had someone laying in the Genesis, and her husband was on the other side, and we both put our hands under her lumbar section because she has a herniated disc. Now, we didn't cure the herniated disc, that's not what it was, but we reached underneath then, and our fingers met at her spine, and we could just feel the energy just flowing and pulsating. And that's the woman I said that got up, I told you earlier, that was able to get up and from bed the next few mornings and not have any difficulty. You know, we didn't cure the herniated disc, but there was enough relaxation, and some of that came from the energy work, that she could move freely.
So is it safe to assume, though, I mean, a lot of people in this program have heard about it, but some have not, that spirit, mind, body, that they're all interconnected. One can help heal the other. One affects the other. They're all interconnected. So we know the placebo effect works. We know that the mind has the ability to heal your body, that your body is a biochemical factor. We know that taking care of your body through diet and exercise can help. The spiritual part of it, the energy work, all of those things are interconnected. And if you're focused only on one or two of them, it's the trifecta that works. And so you focus on all three. You heal spirit, you heal with mind, you heal with body. I'm guessing you're supposed to be a healer. I think you figured out what your life's purpose is.
I said I'm a healer, I'm a teacher, and I'm here to serve. And you talked about some of the method earlier and all. Again, it's because of my traumatic experiences that I learned to be patient with people who are still going through their process. It's because people loved me to get to go through there that I say, I have to love them. You know, Jesus didn't ask us, how much do you want to love each person? Do you love or don't you? I got to say this, John. I know we're running late, but I got to share this one story. I was in a Hardee's restaurant once, and I looked up and saw the most amazingly handsome man I've ever seen in my life. And I was shy, so when he looked up, I looked back down, you know. But then when I looked up, he was still smiling big. But this time I noticed half of his face had been burned. His arms were all scarred with the burns. And that's not what I saw when I first looked at him.
Wow.
And I said, am I looking at him the way God looks at us? Love is not based on the looks. It is a decision to love or not love. And I love that man deeply, especially for giving me that experience. And so in everything I do, I have to do it with love. And if none of the vibrational things worked, if none of the reflexology massage things work, love does.
Would you say that, I mean, what I've heard, you know, it's a famous saying, love is the most powerful force in the universe. Love is the most powerful force in the universe. If 7.8 billion people woke up tomorrow and followed their life's purpose and had love for other people, literally the planet would change overnight.
Before they can do that, they have to love and accept themselves.
Absolutely.
And that means as they are, not just as what they want to be. I did the labyrinth experience in New Harmony, and I had great pain and a lot of emotional stuff going on and wondering how I'm just survival mode. What can I do? And I made the journey into the middle of the labyrinth and sat there waiting for the answer to my prayer. And I just said, God, what do you want me to do? I distinctly heard, just be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, huh? And it continued this time. It said, you don't believe me. So that pain that you've had in your foot for years, it's gone. And when I stood up, that pain was gone and has never returned. I've had other pains, but that one's gone. So I think in all of this body, mind, spirit thing and all, for our transformational growth, it still has to come down to you accept yourself as the one who was abandoned. You expect yourself who was called retarded. You expect yourself who failed in different things. You love and accept yourself for who you are, because of out of all of that, there will be transformation.
Absolutely. I love you just the way you are, forever and always, no matter what. That's the phrase that I kept telling my kids their whole life. And what you just described to me was that's what God tells us. I love you just the way you are, forever and always, no matter what. And if you learn to love yourself, you will transform and your life will literally unfold right in front of you.
Absolutely.
Jim, I appreciate you joining us today. I will tell you that I've known you for a while. I've spent lots of time with you in your classes, and yet in this interview, you taught me more. So the things that you shared with us today, it took a lot, and I appreciate you offering that to us to let people understand that you really can go through a transformational experience. And some of the stories you told to help them identify with that. And I thank you and I give blessings to you for sharing that. And the stuff that you helped us learn today, I know will touch people's lives and I know it'll make a difference for them. And I absolutely appreciate you joining us today.
And if people want to contact me in Indianapolis, Indiana, the name is James Lasher. I go by Jim. And I'm in Indianapolis. I'd love for you to come visit the Total Zap, the Genesis, my classes, anything at all.
So that was the last thing I was going to ask you to share with the folks. So tell us again the name of the church
Yeah.
where they can also contact you, and that's where you hold the classes. So tell us the name of the church and where it's located. That's in Indianapolis, and the name of the church is
Progressive Spiritualist Church. It's on East 54th Street. Regretfully, you'll probably get an answering machine.
Right. Well,
because we don't have big staff to have someone on hand all the time.
Right.
So be patient with a callback.
Okay. And I know that you guys we're all on shelter in place right now, but when we start back up again, I know you're getting ready to offer potentially some folks who can dial in. So they want to get back to the church, they can learn about that as well. But folks, I encourage you, if you are in the local area, to please come by and take some classes. And hopefully you've gained a lot from this today. Again, spirit, mind, body, transformation, following your life's purpose, and brings you joy and happiness and fulfillment. Jim's certainly an example of that. Jim, thank you again for joining us, and I appreciate your time today.
Love you bunches.
All right, take care. I'll see you hopefully in about 2 months.
Yay.
Yay. See you later.
Bye-bye.